Serving their community is who they are because they love where they live. REMAX 3D Real Estate is proud to bring you Heart of Royse City, a video series dedicated to celebrating all the wonderfully great things about Royse City, Texas. On every episode, Dennisha Denney will share Royse City's story through the stories of the people who call Royse City home. This is Heart of Royse City.
Hey y'all, I'm Dennisha Denney, your host of Heart of Royse City, and today we're sitting down at REMAX 3D Real Estate, and my guest today is Mr. Richard Davis. How are you today, Richard?
Doing well, thank you.
Thank you so much for agreeing to sit down with me to tell your story and to talk about what you love about Royse City.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for asking me.
We have to give Chris a shout out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris Everson, he sent me a message, just a random message. He was on the show back in the fall, and he said, hey, you really need to sit down and talk to Richard Davis, who is in charge of our director of our Daily Bread, our local food pantry. So here you are.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for asking me.
You're so welcome. Well, let's start with that. What do you do at our local food pantry?
As director, I guess I see that all of our volunteers, everything that goes on there just follows kind of smoothly. I have a very wonderful group of volunteers that help. I don't think I could do it without them. Mm-hmm. So I want to give them a shout out because you couldn't do a food pantry without a coordinated as well as a committed group of volunteers.
About how many volunteers do you have?
We have around 60.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, we have all kinds of niches that people can get into between going to Walmart to pick up donations, shelving the items, weighing the items. Sometimes we have to do that. People that come and work with volunteers that help us to get boxed food and bagged food ready for them. So, and being open twice a week, it does take around 60 volunteers to get everything done.
Wow.
I don't think people realize how many volunteers it actually does take.
Right.
To do something like this.
Right. So about how many people do you feed per month or per year? Do you have a count of that?
Normally we, before the pandemic struck, we were feeding around 100 to 120 families a month.
Wow.
During the pandemic, it went up and went down some, but I think we went to maybe 120 to 130 families or so.
Okay. So it didn't go up significantly?
No, we thought it might, but in our case it did not.
Oh, that's so good. Talking about that kind of brought me to Snowmageddon. That was an interesting time. How did that impact the food pantry?
Fortunately, where we were located, our electricity did not go off. So we had no problems with burst pipes or, because we have a lot of appliances, freezers and refrigerators. And because we didn't lose electricity, we didn't have any spoilage of food, so nothing ruined.
What a blessing.
Absolutely. I was really afraid that would happen, but it didn't. So we were able to weather, pun intended, we were able to weather that. And we never stopped serving people. We didn't because of that. We kept being open and people did come.
I bet they did. That was a very trying time. Of course, during COVID as well, but Snowmageddon was very specific.
Having COVID and a weather issue at the same time was quite a task. But we got through it just fine and had no problems, really.
So what made you want to be the director, and how did you get involved in the organization?
Back in 2010 and 2011, our church over the years we had a pantry and then it would languish and then it would start up again and stop. So we finally got to the point that we said, look, if we're going to take this seriously, we have to make a commitment to do this. So there were a group of us in 2010 and 11 decided we were going to start this and make a commitment of it. And the church agreed to give us space so that we could do this. And we lived up to that commitment and have been going ever since 2011, 2012.
Wow. Were you a part of that church? Is that
Yes,
how you were able to?
That was my home church,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you rallied the troops.
At the time, we had another member that was the director, and when he and his family moved, I tell people, I didn't seek the job found me type thing,
Right.
Yeah. So I just, sort of took the task on myself and it worked out well to do that. So I became the director, and been going great ever since. I guess it's nice to have all these, like I say, these volunteers. I don't think I can tell you that enough.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
a crew like that makes an enormous difference.
You're able to do so much more because
Mm-hmm.
you have so many people. You said something, though, before we hit start about that, about you wish you could be put out of business.
Yes, yeah. Ideally, I think every pantry and their director and volunteers theoretically would love to go out of business, because that would mean that the people that they served would now have the ability to have adequate food, adequate nutrition, and would not need our services. So ideally, that'd be great if we were put out of business. I'd love that.
That would be great, because that would mean no one's gone hungry, and
Right.
children are fed.
We
and
would have fulfilled our mission, and then we would close. But right now, it's still a very, very needed thing. So we can continue to serve the community of Royse City and the surrounding areas, not just Royse City itself.
Right. How do people qualify?
We have there is a financial qualification. We have a list of that. Most people that we serve, they self-declare,
Okay.
and people tell us they need services, and in most cases, it's obvious that they do. And so it's pretty much a self-declaration, and we find that people that need help like that are usually very honest about it, and that. So I have no qualms about doing that.
Right, right. Now, you mentioned to me earlier you were retired.
Yes.
What did you retire from doing?
I did biomedical research at UT Southwestern Medical School.
Whoa, I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What does that mean? What did you
Well,
do?
When I originally started years ago, we started out in Alzheimer's research. It was a very new thing. There were a lot more questions than there were answers. And so we began, in the lab I worked, we began doing research with Alzheimer's disease.
Really?
And then when I joined another department, when I finally retired, I was doing work with a group that was studying inflammatory disease in kidneys. It's a very, inflammatory diseases are very, very detrimental diseases a lot. Even insulin is considered an inflammatory
Really?
disease with diabetes. So it's a big area. And so when I retired, we were doing work with kidney infections and inflammations.
So did you do research? Like, what,
Yes.
what did that look like? What did you do
This
every
was
day?
all. This was not. We didn't see any patients of any kind. It was all
Okay.
strictly research.
So like in a
Basic research.
lab?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Did you have test people that you were running tests with?
No, we were doing just your basic research to begin to understand what was happening when you would have these episodes where a lot of the chemicals that were involved in inflammatory responses are triggered, and what causes it, what's some of the results of having that happen, the chronic problems that people have with kidney disease. So it was very, the basic research for me is very fulfilling.
Yes. Trying to help someone.
Yeah,
able to-
but you start at the very basic level.
Right.
And then you work up, and eventually you hope to have, if not cures, you have ways you can help people through diseases with medicines and things. But it all starts with a very basic research, and that was where I was.
Man, that would make me never want to quit till I found the end, until I found a solution or something.
Ultimately, that would be the goal. For me, I felt satisfied just by being able to progress and make progress in an area.
Right.
Because that's what it takes. It's a very slow, methodical process. And I was fine with accomplishing just that.
Yeah, well, that's a huge step.
Yeah,
for
because
sure.
our research then could be carried on by somebody else, if not at that university, somewhere else. So the field is continually progressing.
Right.
And so I felt very satisfied with that type of research.
I can see that. Did you get to pick the department that you worked in?
No, I chose to work there.
Okay.
This department had an opening, and so I applied for it and I went to work for them.
The Alzheimer's part, that is one of the, diseases that I wish we could find a cure for and at least slow that down.
When I first started with Alzheimer's disease, you couldn't predict, or you couldn't tell for sure if someone had Alzheimer's until their death, because they would do an autopsy on the brain, and then you could say, yes, they had it, or no, they didn't. But there was no way to tell then whether they did or not. It was just a guess.
Wow. So how is it today?
It's much better. They definitely have medicines now for, nothing can cure it, but there are ways to slow it down so that the progression is not nearly as fast. And that's a big leap forward from the days that I was working on it, where they had no idea what caused it. They had inklings of things, but it was through basic research that they were able to identify what the problems were, maybe how they begin, and then after that, how they can do with either medicines or different things that they could actually slow it down. Or, but it all takes the basic research to get to that point, and that's what they've done over the years, is that.
Did you have sleepless nights where you felt like you were onto something in your research and you're like, oh, I just need to know more and more?
Occasionally, yeah. Mostly no. It was such a new area that even though the least little bit of information was new.
Yes, and exciting.
Yeah, after a while, it becomes maybe harder and harder to find certain things, but when something's brand new, every little thing you find out about it is something new and different. And so that was a big satisfaction for me.
Oh, I'm sure. And how long were you in that industry?
I worked with them for 30 years.
Oh, my goodness, 30 years. So you drove into UT Southwestern for 30 years.
And the traffic over the years got progressively worse and worse.
I bet. What made you decide to retire?
I decided that I was approaching 65, and that was a good. And plus, I'd been with the university long enough. They had a very wonderful retirement program, benefits package, et cetera. And so when I sat down and thought about it, it was a good time to do so, and so I just did.
What inspired you to get into that business?
My science teacher here, I graduated from Royse City High School.
Oh, how cool is that? Okay. We're going to have to talk about that.
And it was one of my science teachers when I was in high school, Gifton Underwood. And and I guess because of the way he taught and his enthusiasm for that it made me want to go into that field, and so I did. So, but it was from one of my teachers in high school.
Man, that is so awesome. Teachers have so much, I say power, but I mean that in a good way, but to really inspire children.
A lot of influence.
A lot of influence, and wow, and look what Mr. Underwood did.
And most of the time, teachers they probably never know.
That's true.
Who they inspire and what the outcome is.
Yes.
And I'm sure I'm not the only one he inspired over the years.
Did you ever go back and tell him?
No, when he moved on to another school, and I guess we kind of lost touch.
Right. Well, tell us about growing up in Royse City and graduating from Royse City High School. What was it like back then?
Well, it's a lot different than it is now. Believe me, when I grew up here, my parents had a farm between here and Fate, and my sister and I grew up there. In fact, it's almost across the road now from the Bobby Summers Middle School.
Yes.
There in Fate. And so all the time I remember growing up, Royse City was just a small rural town with about 1,200 people, 1,250 people. Whenever they had the census, it really varied very little over the years.
Right.
And the school was small. I think when I graduated from high school, the entire school system had 350 kids in the school. I think now there's more than that in this year's graduating senior class.
In the one class.
Yeah, and that was the entire school. In fact, my graduating class was a large one, and we had 36.
Oh, wow. You took up a big population of the school then.
And we were 10% of the school.
Yeah, that's a big number out of the whole school.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what was it like growing up in the school? Well, do you mind telling what year you graduated?
I graduated in 1966.
In 1966, okay.
Yeah.
That gives us a point of reference to kind of know what that was like to have such a small school. And
it was nice knowing everybody in school, and for that matter of fact, a lot of people in town. You knew them and they knew you, and they knew your kids, and it just was a very nice familiar atmosphere in town that way when it was small.
So you really never left then? Or did you? Did you have a time?
I've lived here all my life except for 8 years when I went to college and I went to graduate school.
Okay. Where'd you go?
I went to UT Austin for my degree. My degree was in chemistry. And then I went to the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana for graduate school. And I majored in biochemistry.
How did you choose both of those schools?
My family's been a UT supporting fan on my mother's side. She would have preferred I went to SMU, but it was too expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a pretty penny.
Even then, it's a very expensive private school.
I'm sure.
And I had a lot of relatives that lived in Austin, and we'd always would go visit. So I just came to like the school just from frequent visits to Austin.
Right. It's so beautiful down there.
Yeah. And the school, even then, was much smaller than it is now.
Yes.
Much smaller.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So how did you get to Illinois then for your...
I applied to different graduate schools. I applied to University of Wisconsin, University of Illinois, and University of Colorado in Boulder. And they had the best deal in Illinois. I got a teaching position and a scholarship to go there, so I picked it for that reason. Plus, they have a very good biochemistry department there.
Right.
And since that's what I wanted my major to be, I went there because they are a nationally known school.
That is incredible. I mean, in my mind, I'm sitting here and I'm a real estate broker, and I'm like, man, the intelligence it takes to go into biochemistry and to do all this research is just phenomenal to me. So I love that you did that, and you even left the state to go.
Yes, it was quite different living north.
I'm sure.
I got ribbed a lot because of my accent.
I bet. I bet you did.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
You were probably always the center of attention. Like, we want to hear you talk.
Everybody in the lab where I worked, my nickname was Tex.
Oh, very fitting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but I was very just ribbed. It was good nature, but I still got that from a lot of people.
Yes, I love that. Now, you mentioned your wife earlier, so somewhere along the way you met your wife. How did that happen?
Back in 1968, I was home from summer to work, and we had a new pastor and his wife, and she was a friend of theirs. And so she came out to speak to our youth group, and I happened to be there, and I met her on the front steps of our educational building. You know, if the building was still there, I could take you to the spot.
Oh.
But it's long gone, so.
Oh,
yeah.
You still have your memories there.
Yeah, and we celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary last year.
Oh, congratulations. Oh.
But the pandemic, of course, squashed everything.
Of course.
So we're going to do things this year as if it were last year.
Oh, that's perfect. What do you have planned?
We don't know quite yet, but we wanted to do some traveling last year, but that was totally out of it. You know, you couldn't fly,
I know.
ships, you couldn't take cruises or anything. So we were very disappointed, but we still decided we would do some things this year to make up for 2020.
Yes. Well, good. Well, you can just make it up big.
Yeah, hope to.
Well, good. Now, did you guys have any children? Did you?
We have 2 boys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they graduate from Royse City High School too?
Yes, they
Oh.
both did. Our oldest son is a home builder. He works for First Texas Homes in Forney.
Oh, he's in a great business right now.
Yes, yes. They can't build them fast enough.
I know. We sell them faster than they can build them.
They're beginning to have trouble with getting materials, and so things are slowing down just because,
Right.
having a hard
The
time getting
demand is
materials.
so high and the
Yes,
supply is so low right
that's
now.
correct, yes.
And
Yeah.
what about your other son?
Our youngest son, Stephen, he works for Chase Bank.
Okay.
He's a banker, and he and his family live in Little Elm.
Oh, well, they're not too far then.
No, not at all. Have one granddaughter.
Oh, I bet she's the love of your life.
Yeah, she's 12.
Oh, how fun. Do y'all have special date nights together? Do y'all get to see each other much?
During the pandemic, no, that was a big issue. But things now that they're becoming a little easier to move around, we're doing a few more things. But yeah, 2020 was.
It changed things.
Yeah, we talk on the phone or whatever, FaceTime, but there wasn't much face-to-face.
It's just not the same. What's fun is now I'm seeing posts on Facebook where, grandparents are reuniting with their grandkids and, posting about it and getting to see them and how tall they've grown. And now you can really see how tall they've grown because you can see them in person again.
Things you can't see online.
That's right.
How they've grown, how they've changed. You don't notice that until you see them in person. So I've heard so many people say that people they love, they're finally getting to see again, have really changed in the last year.
Yes.
So.
Yes. You and I talked about something before we hit start, and we talked about your mom.
Yes.
Let's take a minute and let's talk about her.
Oh, Bonnie Davis. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
She was the first woman in the history of Royse City Independent School District to serve on the school board.
Really?
She was the first
woman.
woman to serve on the school board. It was after she retired from being a teacher here. She taught here for a number of years. But she was the first, she blazed the trail for other women to be board members here in the school district.
I love that. Man, hats off to Mom.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you for blazing that trail for us.
One thing else that she got to do, which she really loved, is she got to award all of her grandchildren their certificates of graduation from high school.
Oh, wow.
She was on the board, normally the president of the board hands the diplomas, and that was the case. When they'd get to her grandchildren, they would defer to her, and she would hand her and hug each of her grandchildren.
Oh, how special.
Yeah.
Oh.
She loved that. She got to do that for all of her grandchildren.
How many grandchildren did she have?
She had 4.
4. Oh, that's so special. They probably wanted to make sure that they each got that from her.
Yeah. And my youngest son was the youngest grandchild, and so she stayed on the board an extra term to be able to give him his diploma.
How sweet. That's just what grandmas do.
That's what they do, yep.
Now, there's something else special about your mom.
Yeah, she taught for a number of years. She was also moved into being the school counselor for the high school. And then after she retired, the school honored her, and Mary Davis, another retiring teacher in the school, they named Davis Elementary for them, for the 2 Davis teachers. In fact, Mrs. Davis, Mary Davis, was my 2nd grade teacher. I graduated with her youngest daughter. We were in the same class together.
Oh, how fun. Oh, did you 2 get away with anything?
No.
I bet not.
And neither did the grandkids and everything. Because all the grandkids graduated from high school here too. And so, but no, you didn't get away with it.
That is incredible. Did your mom graduate from Royse City also?
No, she graduated from Rochester High School out in West Texas.
Okay.
And she attended SMU, and she got her education degree at SMU.
Oh, that's why she wanted you to go to SMU.
She is an alumnus from SMU.
That's incredible, though, from her era that she graduated from SMU.
Yeah, she worked her way through college. She worked in one of the offices and paid her way through school because it was during the Depression.
Right.
And so that was how she was able to do that.
Man, your mom was amazing. She was a trailblazer.
Yes.
Going to college during that era, working, coming here, being the first woman on the board. And now having a school named after her. She definitely earned that.
I think you're exactly right. Yeah.
And what an honor you get to carry that on. Well, I loved hearing your story. You have so many cool stories. I want to take just a quick minute. I know you love Royse City, but let's talk about a couple things that you absolutely love about Royse City. If someone says, we're thinking about moving there, tell me why you think they should move here.
You hear more stories off and on about how people step up to help someone else. And there's all kinds of instances I can remember when people had something very bad happen and people, without having to be told, would step up and help. Whatever the situation required, they would help fulfill that. And that's one thing I like about Royse City. And you still see that today. It's not as small a town as it used to be.
Right.
But that small town caring and stepping up is still here. And I hope that it never goes away because it's only continuing to get larger. I just hope that feeling and that how people help one another stays.
I think it will. You know, people like yourself who are giving back and getting to know people, and you know, you're rallying the troops for the food pantry and bringing people in. And the more the new people move here and can plug into those types of things, the more they feel part of the community, and you keep that feel for community.
Yeah, when we started the pantry, our goal was it was not going to be strictly a church sponsored; it was going to be a community sponsored. So we made certain we got volunteers from every aspect of the city, other churches, other organizations, so that it was a community effort, not strictly a church effort.
I think that's great. That way everyone feels included and a part of it.
It does, and I thought that's to be the best it could be. That would be the way to do it. It would be community oriented.
I love that. Okay, Richard, I told you at the end we were going to ask a random question and to pick
And I
a
have
number.
a number.
And what is your number?
Number 7.
Number 7. Perfect. Here's your question. If you could have a superpower, what would you choose?
Oh my!
I told you it was random. It's definitely random.
You can't be too more random than that. I don't think. A superpower.
I'm really interested to see what you're going to say.
I can think of so many that are good and bad, or could be used in
Or it could
in a
be
bad-
used
in a
either
bad
way.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah.
Did you ever wish you had a superpower when you were doing your research?
I think if I had one then, it would be to not forget the knowledge you had, just be able to accumulate that and just, keep that knowledge and just expand on that.
Right.
So it'd probably be something like that where you had a mental capacity to retain all that.
Yes.
And not just use it for any purpose, but use it for something that's good, that's community oriented, and it would help. I think I would do that.
That would be
Yeah.
a really cool superpower.
I think so. You don't hear about that too much. Everybody wants to, be super strength or can fly or whatever.
Right.
But I would go that way.
But I think having the mental strength and being able to remember and recall everything instantly would be even better.
I can say that could be good or bad, but
It could.
Yeah, but I would hopefully be mostly for good.
Right.
But
Well, you would use it for good. That's
Yeah,
how you would use
that-
your superpower.
that's exactly right. I would be sure I did. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I've really enjoyed your stories. I've enjoyed hearing your heart for your community and all the generations in your family that have come through Royse City. And so thank you so much for sharing that with me and sitting down with me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching Heart of Royse City. This video series, which is designed to celebrate Royse City, Texas, is spearheaded by REMAX 3D Real Estate.